It is the Pearl of the Black Sea, as it's known. This major port city has borne the brunt of Russian missile attacks in the last few weeks. On Friday, Ukraine intercepted 4 missiles and a drone, and Ukraine has also stepped up some of its own attacks during Russian targets inside Crimea. As the counteroffensive moves south, today Kyiv's defense ministry says its forces have liberated areas along the southern front line near Robotyne. Before the Russian invasion, nearly 2/3 of the country's exports and imports moved through Odessa's ports. It's a vital economic lifeline. The most important commodity, of course, is grain, but there are other materials as well. Odessa was also a thriving holiday destination. There are few, if any, foreign tourists, but Ukrainians have flocked back to these beaches this summer. And today, I found out how important that is for people who are trying to soothe their trauma, and even for soldiers battling the physical and mental scars of war. In the waning days of a second summer at war, under the blazing Black Sea sun, you find, well, people at the beach. It's actually the first time some of this Odessa coastline has been open for business since the Russian invasion. And while Olga has brought her family for a change of scenery, there is no getting away from it. Here, can you forget the war for a little bit?
Sirens at night don't let you forget. No, we don't forget. At least I don't. But I hope my kids and parents get distracted a little bit.
Still, those who can make the most of it. Life goes on even in wartime. And here at the Calaton Beach Club, it's somehow comforting to watch parents slap protective gear onto their infants as if sunburn is the worst that can happen. But of course, it's not. So does that mean orthopedics or anything? 15 minutes away in the center of town is a modern private recovery and rehabilitation unit, one of 10 set up around the country by a Ukrainian philanthropist. Here, in a full-body sling, 41-year-old Vitaly tells us that he volunteered for the front as a D-miner until he was blown up by an anti-personnel mine 8 months ago in Kherson. The first wave hit my face because I was bending down, he says, and shrapnel entered my eye, another bit hit my finger, and 3 of my toes were blown off. On the rehab bed next to him, 43-year-old Ruslan's injury is less dramatic, spine and back problems from suddenly having to haul heavy gear around. Do you need to get into better shape? If I was 20, he tells me, it would be different, but I'm 43 and so it's difficult. But he wants to go back to the front like Vitaly does just as soon as they're patched up. Still motivated, still sure of victory. But then the talk suddenly turns. Vitaly, what do you think you need? Immobilized and prone, he's crystal clear. We need more weapons and jets to close the sky from the Russian missiles, he says. When a soldier is fighting there and his family is here unprotected, what do you think goes through our minds? Andrei tells me his psychological trauma is worse than the shrapnel to his hand, because he, like all of them, want to be back at the front with their comrades to fight for their country and their family.
Mama.
I have a mother, a father, a wife, and a cat, he tells me. Back at the seaside, Sergei, a 59-year-old conscript based in Kherson, defends his beach-time break. In the middle of war, you don't feel strange?
Yeah, it looks like a little bit strange, but we need some relaxing.
He'll be back under arms after his 15-day furlough, and he insists their counter-offensive is going according to plan. It is an important reminder of preserving the fabric of life even amidst war. Now, as we mentioned, Odessa is key to Ukraine's grain exports and all its exports, frankly. Over the weekend, Ukraine tested a second vessel through a temporary Black Sea corridor that it's established since Russia pulled out of the UN grain deal last month. But Odessa is also a major historical site with rich cultural history encompassing Russians, Jews, Ottomans, as well, of course, as Ukrainians. And the world was very shocked when Russian missiles badly damaged the historic Orthodox Cathedral. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And our next guest, Nikolai Viknayansky, is an advisor to the mayor of Odessa. Welcome to our program. And look, first of all, comment on what's happening behind us. The sun has gone down, it's kind of dark, but all these beaches below have been full for the first time since the war.
Yes, it was full. It's 2 weeks as it full, but to be honest, the picture is a little bit scary because there is no ships. We used to see a lot of lights at sea.
So
and
it's
there is
blank
nothing.
now. It's completely blank.
Black Sea.
Completely the Black Sea.
Yes.
You guys can still make jokes even under
okay.
war. You kind of have to, right? That's what all of
We
this
joke because it's our life.
is your life.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about that then,
Yeah.
because this is a major problem, trying to get exports out, trying to get imports in, and yet your country has facilitated a second sea passage.
Yeah.
How do you think that went? Is there going to be more of it? What can you tell us about that?
I don't know. We have to ask this from the military guys because they defend ships somehow. I don't know how it's possible, but thank you them for it.
So what is it that basically you and the mayor's office are dealing with most right now? Because, you know, Odessa was kind of spared the worst of the Russian assaults at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
In the last month, it's really stepped up, the attacks by Russia.
Yes, we feel situation a little bit better, but not a lot, because 1 year ago we thought that the war would be not more than 1 year. And now we understand that it might be for good with our life, and we have no future.
You really think that it could be
Yes.
forever?
We don't think how to deal with it. And I understand that we as a man can be just finished, because our potential as the man quantity is less 3-4 times than Russia. And that's why now I still run as advisor for the mayor of Odessa about humanitarian issues. I run the biggest Ukrainian humanitarian center. We support IDPs and we supply them with
Those are internally displaced people.
the IDPs, internally displaced people. So, and our center, which I founded with my friend, this is the biggest in Ukraine. We have helped more than 200,000 families.
That's
since
a lot.
the beginning. That's a lot. Yes.
Is that Odessans or is
It's
that
a city
people who are
center.
coming?
No, it's
plus
from
IDPs?
everywhere.
Yeah.
From Mariupol, from Kherson, from East, from everywhere.
And are they still coming,
Still
even this
coming.
late into the war?
Even now, still coming. Every day we have about 200 families.
You're not a military man, and I'm not asking you military
Yeah.
questions, but you know, you're saying you're concerned that this could go on for a long time, that they have, as you said, 4 times the number of population than you have here in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
How is the counteroffensive being perceived here? How are people thinking about it and talking about
Different people think differently.
Yeah.
But as for me, I have never overestimated it, and I know a lot of soldiers. It's a lot of my close friends now there, and I understand that it's really difficult for them. It's difficult without airplanes, air fighters. It's difficult because everything is mined, and so as for me, everything goes as needed. It's okay, but at the same time, a lot of my friends, they lost their limbs, they wounded, and understand that I might be drafted.
You understand that you might
yes,
be drafted.
even
and,
tomorrow.
and you would go willingly?
Yes, of course.
You know, that is an incredible thing for people to understand and to hear you say that, because we were, as you saw, in a rehab center just earlier today, and we saw people with severe wounds and those who are being, you know, being rehabilitated and recovering. And yet, every single one of them said that they wanted to go back to the front, that the pull of their comrades and the pull of the idea of defending the homeland and their families is just huge still.
Yes, this is huge, I think, even more than it was before. Because at the beginning it was like reactive. And now it's reflexia. And that's why now we understand that we have to go.
So before you just did it
It
because
was
it
directly,
was
yes,
immediate.
it's direct reflection.
Yeah, and now it's a way of
deep-
life.
Yes, of course. but it's our home.
Yeah, you deal in humanitarian issues, but you also were very, very prominent in the campaign to get Odessa named a UNESCO
Yeah.
historical site.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel in your heart when the famous church was so badly damaged last month?
To be honest, it's a little bit mistake because the church is a new building.
Yeah.
It has never
Is that
been
right?
UNESCO site. Yes.
Okay.
But there
It's
are
called
some,
the Transfiguration.
yes, it's
Cathedral.
transfiguration because communists in 1937 ruined this church, and after 2000 we rebuilt it. So that's why this is a new building and.
But on a historic site.
A historic site, but the building is new. But there were damaged a lot of real historical buildings, and I feel pity about that. But otherwise, I know that now this is UNESCO site, and since they bombed UNESCO site, this is a top level of military crime, and that's why we will take them to the court. I believe that we will have enough money to rebuild everything, to restore everything,